It's June 19th, 2016. The Cleveland Cavaliers are on the verge of winning the NBA championship against the Golden State Warriors. It would be the first in the Cavaliers' turbulent 46-year history. The city of Cleveland's first major pro title since the Browns in 1964. In the early 80s, Ted Stepien kneecapped the franchise by shedding draft picks. These Cavs employed Kyrie Irving because they acquired a draft pick. Irving just hit a huge shot. The Cavs rebuilt in the late 80s but made bad trades and never fulfilled their promise as the team of the 90s. These Cavs made a great trade, swapping youth for the ready-made veteran talent of Kevin Love, who just stifled Stephen Curry's attempt to flip the lead. Drafts and trades permit needy franchises to choose desirable players, and the Cavs owe much of their turnaround to such choices. But landing star talent is one thing. Keeping a star on board is a whole other challenge. You've got to fix the problems that made your team needy in the first place. Prove to the star that you've changed. Because a player with enough experience, talent, and leverage graduates from being chosen to making choices of his own. The third chapter of Cavaliers history hinges on one person. One fortune-changing talent who represents their greatest triumph and greatest failure. It's time to talk about LeBron James. When this time elapses, LeBron will certainly be named 2016 NBA Finals MVP for the world champion Cavaliers. 6 years ago, this reality was unthinkable. In 2010, LeBron got to choose. For the first time in his career, King James entered unrestricted free agency, an opportunity available only to certain NBA players and only since the 1988 collective bargaining agreement. Thanks to his veteran superstar status, James could work wherever he wanted, free to move in a way the greats of yesteryear, those union members who laid the groundwork for this contractual right, never could. No franchise held the power to conscript LeBron's talents. League rules allowed his incumbent team, the Cavaliers, to make the best offer, but Cleveland could not demand compensation for his departure, nor could they prevent it by matching a salary offer. All the front office could do was try to appease him with moves. All fans could do was plead. The league's most prominent star hand-picked attractive employers, heard their maximum contract pitches on his terms, then made his decision, with a capital D, on national television. LeBron chose to take his talents to South Beach, which it turns out is in Miami, not Cleveland. He'd go on to win championships with the Heat, alongside other stars who'd made the same unrestricted decisions. Obviously, something changed since then. But before we talk about the choices that led to this moment, we should follow LeBron's initial trajectory from chosen to choosy. Let's go back. Our last big rewind left us in a dank, dark valley. By the end of the 20th century, Gordon Gunn's Cavaliers roster looked bloated and aimless, far removed from the harmonious late 1980s teams. Cleveland management had little choice but to start over by dumping Shawn Kemp's huge contract and rebuilding through that all-important life raft for sinking franchises, the NBA draft lottery. But Jim Paxson's front office didn't exactly nail those lottery picks. In the 2000 draft, Cleveland traded Jamal Crawford for Chris Mihm. Bad. They drafted Sagana Diop over Joe Johnson in 2001. Bad. That's multiple overrated big guys, and then when an actual great one, Amar'e Stoudemire, fell to the Cavs in 2002, They instead selected DeJuan Wagner, whose promising career would derail because of unfortunate health issues. Cleveland remained in the doldrums and sunk to rock bottom in 02-03. Nothing illustrates this wretched period quite like a notorious Ricky Davis goof. In a game near the end of a rancid 03 season, Davis found himself one rebound away from a triple-double, so he intentionally missed a shot to try to get that 10th board. DeShawn Stevenson showed Ricky how he felt about that. And that's the same Ricky Davis who busted out a clean between-the-legs dunk in the final seconds of a blowout loss. Spectacular. This is how the Cavs of the early 2000s made headlines, as a sideshow, again. They weathered accusations of tanking on purpose, but deliberate or not, there was a good reason to finish the 02-03 season with just 17 wins. LeBron James was born in the same hospital as Steph Curry, but unlike Wardell Jr., young LeBron remained in Ohio. By the early 2000s, he had already become quite famous. As a high school underclassman, James had overshadowed older, better-known competition at camps. Leading an excellent St. Vincent St. Mary's high school team, James floored observers not only with his physical attributes, but with his ingenious, enlivening approach to basketball. The towering forward looked athletic enough to simply overwhelm opponents, but loved to read the floor, manipulate the action, and invent easy plays for everyone. The kid was a savant. Scouts, executives, and media just shit their little pants. On this famous 2002 cover, Sports Illustrated called LeBron James the Chosen One, a pretty reckless label to foist on a 17-year-old kid. They predicted James could be a lottery pick even in that year's draft, and LeBron had genuinely considered leaving high school early to prove them right. James actually joined the nearby Cavaliers for a workout during his junior year, a stunt that got Cavs coach John Lucas suspended for the first couple games of Cleveland's 02-03 Tank Fest. Ultimately, LeBron stuck around to win one more state title as a senior, then declared for the 2003 draft as the headliner of a stacked prospect class. All of this from a kid born like 40 miles from Gund Arena. So yeah, the 03 Cavs could stomach a season of the alpha Ricky Davis experience in exchange for a 22.5% chance of getting the top lottery pick. The lottery offered some compelling consolation prizes, but the opportunity to choose the chosen one, to keep LeBron in Ohio, had Cavaliers owner Gordon Gund thrilled. On lottery night in May, a Cavs executive witnessed Gund shaking with apprehension about the drawing. The executive reminded Gund of his greater life goals, like curing the disease that impaired his vision. Winning a draft lottery isn't like finding a cure for blindness. Responded Gund, "It's pretty damn close. He so badly wanted that chance to draft first." Fate favored the Cavaliers, or weighted lottery odds favored them, whichever. As soon as the envelope for the second selection revealed a non-Cavs logo, Clevelanders erupted in excitement. TV cameras caught Austin Carr, Cleveland's first ever number one pick from 1971, weeping with joy at the Cavs lottery party. And in a move you absolutely never see, Gund unfurled a rebranded, personalized Cavs jersey. New colors, new logo, already stitched with LeBron's name and number, right there at the lottery. Cleveland had prepared a prop to celebrate this unlikely outcome, one that wouldn't even pay off until the following month's draft. That is how special a prospect LeBron James was. The feeling wasn't 100% mutual. Staying home was cool, but James had been paying attention to the actual team. The wanton roster depletion, the hideous basketball it took for Cleveland to win his rights, also made them a pretty unattractive employer. But even one of the most accomplished teenagers in basketball history didn't have much leeway. Such is the irony of the NBA draft. James's future teammates described the forthcoming prodigy like he was just another new supporting player there to make them look better. This old local news broadcast is a wonderful document of people underestimating LeBron.
We have better players than him in his position already on our team, bro.
Saying he can just hop on our bandwagon.
LeBron's rookie season instantly changed that tone. It was clear that the Cavs finally had the guy. And equally clear, beginning with Game 1, that they needed to restructure around him. Cleveland did employ 2 good frontcourt players they'd acquired with late draft picks. Thank God for that, because the rest of the roster looked bleak. New coach Paul Silas didn't have much to work with. Recent lottery pick DeJuan Wagner spent a lot of time sidelined, so the Cavs straight up didn't have a point guard. LeBron had to fill that role, and the scorers Cleveland depended on during their 02-03 tank sesh clearly weren't going to fit. So, Jim Paxson cleared Ricky Davis out of the way quickly, then dealt Darius Miles to bring in a new ball handler, Jeff McInnes. Paxson didn't consult LeBron before these moves, but he was pleased to get the rookie's approval. Meanwhile, that rookie continued to live up to the extreme hype. James produced some rough shooting nights, exposing the one prominent weakness in his developing game. But he also did some shit teenagers aren't supposed to do, like dropping 41, 13, and 6 in a come-from-behind victory against the Nets. A special rookie and his big sidekicks won 35 games. Huge improvement, though not quite enough to drag the rest of the roster into the 2004 postseason. Still, they gave Paxson a foundation. With better guard play, including a hopeful Wagner return, the Cavs could get cooking. They had to, because a nascent superstar represents a ticking clock. It wouldn't be long before James moved from his rookie contract to enjoying some free agent rights. Cleveland needed to build a winner around him and get the hell out of the lottery ASAP. Step 1 there was obvious: pay Carlos Boozer. The rapidly improving power forward had been a second-round draft pick and thus made relatively little money. If unattended, Boozer would soon enter free agency. He could select his team and finally sign a big contract to match his burgeoning talent. The Cavs planned to just preempt all that by paying Boozer right now to commit long-term. Accounts of what happened next vary, but the upshot is that before 04 free agency began, Boozer and his agent, Rob Pelinka, met with Gordon Gund and the Cavaliers. They reached a sort of handshake agreement, something illegal under NBA rules if formalized. The Cavs would decline the low-paying option years remaining on Boozer's existing contract. This would certainly alarm fans, but then Cleveland would immediately sign Boozer to a big new contract. As this transpired, Boozer told the public he wanted to remain in Cleveland. But July moved along and... less accomplished big men were signing contracts richer than the one Cleveland promised Boozer. So Carlos couldn't help but shop around, and he eventually signed a 6-year, $68 million offer sheet with the Utah Jazz. Technically, Boozer was a restricted free agent, so the Cavs could match that salary and keep him. In reality, $68 million was way more than they'd budgeted, way more than they thought all parties had agreed to. The Cavs thus decided to let LeBron's best teammate walk away. Gordon Gund immediately engaged his version of damage control, an open letter. Gund sympathized with fans' disappointment. He had believed in Carlos. Gund gave his version of events, with direct quotes about respect and trust that Boozer supposedly did not reciprocate. He explained why Cleveland was choosing not to match Utah's lucrative offer, because the expense would have significant negative impact on the team. So the first offseason of building around LeBron James was wrecked from the beginning. Paxson tried and failed to convince 40-year-old former MVP Karl Malone to come on board. The Cavs settled for trades to add a solid point guard, Eric Snow, and a decent enough Boozer replacement in Drew Gooden, although that trade would end up paying off more on its margins. Meanwhile, Cleveland's other potential rising star never returned to form. Bad luck faded Dajuan Wagner's star potential before the age of 24. Cleveland's 2004 lottery pick, Luke Jackson, hardly contributed. The decision to select him stood out when some lower drafted players outperformed him. Like, well, this guy, actually. Still not as bad as when the pre-LeBron Cavaliers drafted this guy, Vitaly Potapenko, now an assistant coach, over Kobe Bryant. Anyway, the point is, even an improving LeBron wasn't enough for the barely fortified 05 Cavs. James logged the most minutes of any NBA player, became an all-star at age 20, and joined big names like Allen Iverson and Kobe Bryant atop the scoring chart. But he couldn't improve the Cavaliers' standing in a tough Central Division. That season is well represented by a game on March 20th, 2005, when LeBron broke the franchise scoring record to pour 56 points on the Raptors, plus 10 rebounds and 5 assists just for funsies, and Cleveland still couldn't win. Even the most scintillating young star needs help. Affable human fire tower Zydrunas Ilgauskas picked, popped, and defended his way to an 05 All-Star berth, but Big Z was not productive enough to be the second best player on a team with any prayer of contending. After a 30-20 start, Cleveland slumped out of the All-Star break and fell just short of the 2005 playoffs. The Cavs did have room to grow, but the regime that welcomed LeBron wouldn't be the one to carry out that project. Gordon Gund was well into his 60s and ready to focus on his philanthropic endeavors. He reached out to David Stern, who'd been NBA commissioner since around the time he brokered Gund's team acquisition back in 1983. Over 2 decades later, Gund wanted Stern to find the next owner of the Cavaliers. The commish knew just the guy. Unlike Ted Stepien and Gordon Gund, Dan Gilbert claimed minimal connection to Cleveland, Ohio. But just like them, he had way too much money. Gilbert's personal mythology describes a Detroit kid scrapping his way from modest real estate business into big-time mortgage lending. In the 80s, Gilbert founded a company called Rock Financial. Several decades, a sale, a reacquisition, and some grimy scandals later, you probably know it as the powerful and ubiquitous Quicken Loans. By the 2000s, this little chief owned billions of dollars, NBA franchise money. With Stern's enthusiastic guidance, Dan Gilbert used almost $400 million of those dollars to buy majority ownership in the Cavaliers. It didn't take long for Gilbert to paste over all the Gund branding with Quicken Loans stuff. And Gilbert's makeover went far deeper. GM Jim Paxson had the Cavs roster positioned to improve in the summer of '05, and Coach Silas had them playing organized if not victorious ball. But those two were at odds with one another, and they weren't Gilbert's guys. To replace them, Gilbert followed a tried and true strategy: hire people who have worked for the San Antonio Spurs. Cleveland's new coach, Mike Brown, who had won a ring as an assistant with San Antonio, then spent a few years engineering the Indiana Pacers' monstrous defense under Rick Carlisle. Brown's boss, the Cavs' new general manager, was, hey, we know this guy. Danny Ferry first came to Cleveland in the Cavaliers' desperate, ill-fated move to dump Ron Harper entering 1990. Ferry had a fine Cavs career, albeit nowhere near good enough to justify that critical trade. Ferry played his last few seasons for Greg Popovich and then joined the Spurs front office. He took a Cavs interview in '05 with no intention of leaving San Antonio. But Ferry hit it off with Gilbert and ended up accepting his first general manager job. So this guy, who had little choice over his role in the Cavs' past, now got to determine the Cavs' future, and he had no time to waste. Since they never paid Carlos Boozer, the Cavaliers possessed enough salary cap space to sign the best members of an exciting 2005 free agent class. To help Coach Brown get the most out of LeBron James and to ensure James would extend his first contract, Ferry had to convince talented players to choose Cleveland. The Cavs' own Zydrunas Ilgauskas was part of that group. Ferry needed to retain the center whose Cavs career went so far back that he'd once been Ferry's teammate. Ilgauskas had planned to vacation in China while mulling free agency offers, but the Cavs were not going to let him slip away like Boozer did. Dan Gilbert and Mike Brown bought first-class plane tickets just so they could intercept Zydrunas and his wife during their layover at the Los Angeles airport. The team owner and coach hustled through security, which drew some TSA attention since they had no luggage. Then they sprinted around LAX trying to find Big Z, only to realize they were in the wrong terminal. Gilbert and Brown hopped in a van to find the right terminal, went through security again, paused to buy Zydrunas' wife some flowers and a balloon that said, "I love you," then finally found their guy, presumably the only 7'3" person in the airport. Gilbert and Brown gave the Ilgauskases their gifts, bought them lunch, then made an offer. And it worked. Before he boarded his connecting flight, Ilgauskas contacted his agent with instructions to get the deal done. Brown compared the successful mission to Spy Kids 3, specifically the third one. So, the Cavs successfully defended against further pilfering of their front court. To reinforce the backcourt, they'd need to go on the offensive. Fortunately, some excellent, high-scoring NBA guards were seeking new contracts. Joe Johnson, Ray Allen, and Ohio native Michael Redd. Johnson was a restricted free agent, so the incumbent Phoenix Suns could make acquiring him difficult. They ended up trading him to the Hawks for more than Cleveland would offer. Johnson fulfilled his all-star potential in Atlanta. The older Allen and Redd were true free agents, and Cleveland pursued them hard. LeBron recorded each player a pitch video in hopes of attracting a veteran co-star. But while unrestricted free agency gives players the right to choose, the NBA's labor agreement uses maximum salary rules to incentivize staying with your previous team. Allen and Redd got paid and stayed put. So Danny Ferry's first big swings as Cavaliers GM didn't make contact. But with cash to burn and a mandate to build around LeBron, Ferry felt compelled to go get someone. Larry Hughes was a combo guard entering his prime after a solid two-way season in Washington. He was also a spotty shooter with a history of injuries. Hughes had spent a lot of games on the sideline in his large shirt. The Cavs made that guy their highest-paid player for 2006, inking Hughes to basically the same long-term deal they offered the more illustrious Michael Redd. Rounding out this free agent haul were some shooters. A big sleepy one in Donyell Marshall, and a little spunky one in Damon Jones. Pretty underwhelming outcome to the critical summer of 2005, the first offseason under Gilbert and Ferry. And Cleveland's biggest signing, Hughes, went on to miss a chunk of his first Cavalier season because of a messed up finger. Thankfully, the Cavs still had LeBron. After becoming Rookie of the Year at 19 and an All-Star at 20, LeBron turned 21, threw himself a party, then became arguably the best player in the NBA. James averaged a career-high 31 points per game in 05-06, attacking within a Mike Brown offense that could now deploy shooters to generate space and top 10 efficiency. In February, LeBron was All-Star Game MVP. In March, he punctuated a 37-point triple-double by burying the first buzzer-beating game winner of his career, a confident jab and leaner from 20 feet out. The jumper was coming along. This one earned win number 39 for Cleveland. In April, the Cavaliers hit 50 wins for the first time since the days of Lenny Wilkens and the Richfield Coliseum. LeBron led Cleveland to their first postseason berth since 1998. They secured the 4 seed and a matchup with the Washington Wizards. Playoff time. LeBron's first ever playoff game, a high-pressure milestone in any star's career, was a cakewalk. He piloted a clean Cavs victory with a 32-point triple-double, including nearly as many assists as field goals. LeBron won Game 3 of that series by outlasting Wizards superstar Gilbert Arenas in a bucket-for-bucket showdown in the final seconds. The debut performer commanded this new stage. But if LeBron slipped even a little, like a rough shooting night in Game 2 or a high turnover outing in Game 4, then so did the Cavaliers. So he stopped slipping. James ladled 45 points on the Wizards in Game 5, including this impressive tightrope act of a buzzer beater for the win. In Game 6, Damon Jones hit the shot that put the Wizards away for good. The Cavaliers won their first playoff series since 1993. Soon thereafter, the NBA announced its 2006 Most Valuable Player, Steve Nash. Nash's second straight award prevented James from being the youngest MVP ever. Remember, by the way, that the Cavaliers chose not to draft this guy when given the opportunity. Or this guy. Or this guy, as a matter of fact. Sorry. Anyway, the 2006 Cavs advanced to face the top-seeded Detroit Pistons in round 2. The Pistons fell one pick short of LeBron back in the 2003 lottery, but they'd been doing pretty okay since then, with 2 straight finals appearances, including the 2004 title. And here in the 2006 conference semifinals, their vaunted defense knew whom to swarm. LeBron mustered enough excellence to stretch the series to 7 games, but especially in the elimination game, nary a Cavalier stepped up to support him. Cleveland's Game 7 score looked like something from the 1940s. Check out the points distribution from that game. Just the total inverse of a Cavs box score from the Lenny Wilkens era. So things ended on a sour note, but given the kinda limp 2005 offseason, the Cavs felt pretty good about the tangible progress on the court. And LeBron validated their good feelings by signing up for more. He had spent the last year or so changing agents, hiring friends, consulting with Jay-Z, and, well, all that culminated in a contract extension signed in the summer of 2006. Interestingly, James didn't extend for the maximum years. The contract ended with an optional 4th year. The Cavaliers' clock now ticked toward 2010. Onward. 06-07. Basically the same rotation, just replacing a guard called Flip Murray with a guard called Boobie Gibson. Hi, Boobie. Larry Hughes wasn't really healthy, but he played more, and some youngsters embraced substantial roles. The Cavs still depended on LeBron a great deal, at least on offense. It didn't always look great, but by regular season's end, Brown's signature defensive coaching registered. While the Cavs merely matched the prior season's win total of 50, Cleveland entered the 2007 playoffs with a reputation for devouring opposing scorers. The Wizards, beset by injuries, never had a prayer in a first-round sweep. The Nets went down in 6, Vince Carter flummoxed by the Cleveland defense. So here was another first for LeBron and the 21st century Cavaliers, the Eastern Conference Finals. Their opponent was familiar. The Pistons no longer featured defensive superstar Ben Wallace, but they still held the 1 seed and were still well equipped to bombard LeBron, to dare another Cavalier to beat them. In games 1 and 2, that worked. Those games were ugly. The Pistons barely scored points, but succeeded in dragging the Cavs down with them. LeBron couldn't even crack 20, and Cleveland's outside shooting failed to cover the difference. In Game 1, LeBron raised eyebrows by passing up the big shot over help defense, dishing to an open game winner for Donyell Marshall, who missed. In Game 2, LeBron wanted to take the final shot, but the Pistons' defense smothered him. So Game 3 at home was big, and LeBron treated it that way. He just kind of refused the defense and took over for a crisp 32 points. In the 4th quarter of a tied game, this chest-to-chest yam sandwich upon Rasheed Wallace sent a message to the fans in the arena. I am LeBron James. I have decided that my team, your team, will win this basketball game. LeBron created plenty of opportunities for others, but when it came down to it and the Pistons remained close, the kid called his own number, drew a switch, and closed the book. That is the kind of performance that gets the opponent complimenting you. The kind that gets your coach to admit he basically handed you the keys. But that wasn't even the game. Neither was Game 4, in which LeBron's big fourth quarter and a key bench performance from Gibson tied the series. The game, the night the world really, truly found out about LeBron James, was Game 5. At home in the Palace of Auburn Hills, in front of 22,000 boisterous Detroit fans and Kid Rock, the Pistons outplayed the Cavs. They really did. LeBron did his best to keep everyone engaged, but Hughes was limping through a foot injury and the other guards couldn't hit. In the fourth, the Cavs fell apart. Rip Hamilton led a Pistons free throw parade that produced 10 unanswered points. Detroit could feel the contest and the series swinging in their direction. They held a 7-point lead with 3 minutes to go. And then LeBron just ate the game. The whole building. Nobody else existed except LeBron James. First, he crossed up Hamilton and finished lefty to make it 5. After an empty Pistons possession, LeBron demanded the ball. This is a 22-year-old, then simply pulled up from 26 feet. After Varejão's quick hands forced this turnover, LeBron continued his solo, freezing Jason Maxiell off the dribble for a dunk. Miraculously, the Cavs had regained the lead, but Mr. Big Shot, Chauncey Billups, drilled an eponymous big shot, just a dagger through the inflating Cleveland balloon. Game 5 thus presented LeBron the same scenario that bedeviled him in the first 2 road games. One decisive possession with less than a shot clock left. The Pistons were clearly going to overplay him. Would he force a tough shot? Would he pass? It had been minutes of game time since another Cavalier even held the ball on offense. Detroit coach Flip Saunders cleverly arranged his defense so that a pick would switch sprawling noodle man Tayshaun Prince onto LeBron. But the All-NBA defender looked away for like half a second, which was half a second too many.
Out of 10, James with the step, and the game is tied at 91 with 9.5 to go.
That scorpion strike took Game 5 to overtime, where LeBron matched the Pistons by scoring all of Cleveland's points. Nobody else even attempted a shot until the buzzer. James drew fouls. He used Big Z for an easy bucket, and then he faced down a chance to maybe put the game away. Look at this. Look at this offense. If you squint, you could convince yourself LeBron is playing 1-on-5. When a pick arrived, the Pistons basically treated him that way, hounding LeBron with multiple defenders to force a pass. But on this night, no force surpassed that of LeBron. 4-point game.
James has to fire and scores! Oh my! What a shot by LeBron James!
Nevertheless, Detroit hung around. Free throws bought them a second overtime. LeBron had played 45 minutes. He'd scored 16 straight points by himself. Did he really have 5 more minutes of this in the tank? As a matter of fact, he did. Defended perfectly by Prince, he did. Pestered by Billups, he did. Over 2 defenders from 25 feet out, fading to his left, he did. When LeBron squared up with seconds left in a tied contest, it had been almost 18 game minutes since another Cavalier made a field goal. The moment LeBron moved, 5 goalkeepers converged, and LeBron just sliced right through them. This is LeBron. The strength to absorb contact, the finesse to make the backboard his accomplice. Kind of shitty defense here, too. When Mr. Big Shot betrayed his name, LeBron had officially done it. The 22-year-old held off the Detroit Pistons by himself. His 48 points included an astonishing 25 straight. And the Pistons were toast. Cleveland whomped them in Game 6 at home. LeBron finally got to ease off the gas, while Daniel Gibson put on a spectacular shooting performance, scoring 31 points. For the first time in their 37 years of existence, thanks almost entirely to a homegrown, tank-secured, draft-selected prodigy, the Cleveland Cavaliers made the NBA Finals. All the suffering, all the uncertainty built to this moment. And then the Cavs got absolutely fucking mopped in the NBA Finals. The tip-top San Antonio Spurs defense swallowed LeBron. His teammates filled out one of the worst offensive outputs in history. The 07 Finals sucked. Still, the Cavs had cleared another bar. They were finalists and could stay that way because the conference now belonged to them. Detroit proved mortal, Miami was fracturing, the East's other young centerpieces just weren't LeBron. So Danny Ferry and the Cavs stood pat. The draft certainly wasn't going to help them. They'd already traded their first-round pick for a guy who would never play another NBA game. A new trade for scoring point guard Mike Bibby simmered but didn't cook. The Cavs entered the 07-08 season with virtually the same rotation. But hey, that group had gotten them to the finals, so what's the problem? Well, a couple problems. These teams did not stand pat. They kept building, enough to withstand the Cavs in each of the next 3 postseasons. In June 2007, Boston Celtics GM Danny Ainge found a way to accomplish what Cleveland's Danny had not. Boston acquired elite bucket generator Ray Allen as a sidekick for the star they had once drafted, Paul Pierce. A few days later, Boston swung a huge trade for recent MVP Kevin Garnett. Suddenly, Pierce enjoyed the company of 2 teammates way more talented than anyone who had ever joined LeBron. The Celtics had their so-called Big Three. As the season progressed, breakout point guard Rajon Rondo made that an arguable 4. While those Celtics found their footing, the Cavs stagnated, deteriorated even. Anderson Varejao held out over contract issues, and Cleveland's injury list grew to include LeBron's finger. During the games he missed, the reigning Eastern champions actually fell below the 500 mark. Execution of Mike Brown's defense slipped. The offense was outright bad. Cleveland only got back in the win column because LeBron returned to orchestrate everything. His near-spotless performance somehow sharpened. It took all-out LeBron excellence to get anything done, like this stretch in January 2008. The 23-year-old put up 31 points and 19 boards in 50 minutes to barely outlast the stinky Charlotte Bobcats in double overtime. A few nights later, James had to score 51 to beat the even worse Memphis Grizzlies in OT. A year or 2 from free agency, LeBron was frustrated. He wanted help like Paul Pierce. Specifically, LeBron wanted the help of star point guard Jason Kidd, who had just requested a trade from the New Jersey Nets. When it sounded like the Nets instead had a deal with the Mavericks, LeBron could barely hide his disappointment from media. He wanted to win. More. Now. Desperate to satisfy their star, the Cavs finally did something, lunging into the most complex trade of a busy 08 deadline season. Danny Ferry sent a chunk of the starting lineup to Chicago. Cleveland got back Ben Wallace, who had regressed considerably since his Detroit days, plus, thankfully, a couple solid Seattle perimeter players, Delonte West and Wally Szczerbiak. Big move, but you look around at who else switched teams during that time and I don't know, man. The trade didn't really change Cleveland's fortunes. They finished 08 with 45 wins and after beating the Wizards, couldn't overcome the Celtics' shiny new Big Three in the playoffs. LeBron yet again had to weather an excellent defense by himself and did a pretty incredible job pressing the series to 7 games. But Game 7 epitomized the Cavs' fatal flaw. While James labored for 45 points, former Celtic Delonte West was the only other player to even crack double figures in a 5-point loss. Boston's new Big Three went on to win the 2008 championship, completing the greatest single-season improvement in NBA history. LeBron's Cavs had declined with 2010 on the horizon. Dan Gilbert insisted he wasn't worried about free agency, but with a superstar casually dropping the phrase personnel changes, Danny Ferry knew he had more work to do in the summer of '08. Easier said than done, since prior moves and basic housekeeping left Cleveland without space to just go out and sign great players. Ferry, to his credit, pulled off a shrewd late summer move, exchanging bench players for Mo Williams, a smooth little guard who could create and hit shots. This pleased LeBron. Alongside LeBron, Williams found himself free to hover behind the arc, where he put up a career-best three-point percentage. At the same time, Delonte West and Wally Szczerbiak, who had arrived with Ben Wallace at the prior deadline, settled into their roles, enjoying the opportunities one gets in the company of the king. LeBron finally had a decent backcourt. Williams joined LeBron on the '09 Eastern All-Star team, albeit as an injury replacement for Chris Bosh. Among these Cavs, LeBron could finally dial down his volume and share the touches. But don't get me wrong, he still had the green light to take over whenever he wanted or needed to. One night in February '09 stands out. LeBron got bored or frustrated or I don't know what happened, but he just decided to start heaving against the Milwaukee Bucks. That night, the Cleveland broadcast had two legends on the call at the Bradley Center. Two voices who, along with the stalwart Joe Tate, heralded LeBron's ascent in Cleveland. Strongsville, Ohio's Fred McLeod on play-by-play, and our old friend Austin Carr providing color. Those two bore witness to this. Look at this man refusing to accept a big halftime deficit, calling his own number at the buzzer. Look at him just forgoing normal basketball to pull up off a made shot.
He's as hot as a blowtorch.
Listen to veteran announcers, guys who've seen everything, absolutely piss themselves.
LeBron James, heat check time.
And look at the bench, grown men just losing it. LeBron turned around a losing score by dropping 55 points, including 8 three-pointers from increasingly absurd distance. So yeah, when you give that even the tiniest bit of help, good things happen. The Cavs played elite offense and restored their signature defense. They won 66 games, still the franchise record by a long shot. Come postseason, the '09 Cavs melted what remained of the Pistons, then smoked the Hawks. Cleveland entered the Eastern Conference Finals on a path swept clean, 8 straight double-digit victories. In between, LeBron checked off another personal achievement, taking home the 2009 NBA MVP trophy. The league and its fan base braced for a blockbuster finals matchup. LeBron and his Cavs against '08 MVP Kobe Bryant and the reanimated LA Lakers. But first, a surprise conference final opponent. Instead of a Boston rematch, the Cavs would face these guys. The Orlando Magic, banged up as they were, had overthrown the similarly hampered Celtics in the second round. Orlando had drafted Dwight Howard #1 the year after Cleveland. Then they had retained talent, made more good draft picks, and shelled out cash to ensure support for their new superstar. If you're counting All-Stars, the 2009 Magic had their own big three. Dwight's powerful dunks centered a half-court offense rife with shooters. His shot blocking was the linchpin of a top-shelf interior defense. The Magic played elegant, overwhelming basketball for Coach Stan Van Gundy. Cleveland, though, represented the clear favorite, at least until a Game 1 that resembled a sort of sped-up version of those old Pistons games. Instead of a defensive struggle, it was a shootout. Dwight commanded the middle, while point forward Hedo Turkoglu orchestrated a three-point bonanza. Cleveland kept pace because of LeBron. For all the advances they had made, it was just LeBron. He scored a pristine 49 points. Most everyone else shot poorly. Howard's right-hand man, Rashard Lewis, punctuated a rally with this clutch three. West came up short on the return, and Mo Williams couldn't cash in this nice tip from LeBron. the Cavs' frictionless playoff streak hit an abrupt snag with a Game 1 loss at Quicken Loans Arena. And speaking of that streak, the Cavs' long layoff following their short second-round series manifested in a severe bout of leg cramps for LeBron. Clevelanders were nervous. Game 2 offered reassurance. LeBron once again had to carry the Cavs, and this time he secured the critical shot. With Turkoglu on his hip, James caught and fired on target before 1 second elapsed. Joe Tate's radio call conveys the relief of a long-awaited break for the Cavs.
Looks, fires to LeBron, 3 ball in the air. He hit it! He hit it! Cavaliers win!
Finally, for the first time in a playoff history defined by MJ, Cleveland hosted a dramatic, game-winning shot by the league's premier player, the guy, for the home team. But that only evened the series. Orlando's superior balance won out at home in an ugly Game 3 and a Game 4 that featured more clutch shooting from Rashard Lewis. LeBron finally got some help from Weston Williams to avoid elimination in Game 5, but it all came crashing down in a grim Game 6 defeat. Kobe versus LeBron was canceled. Perhaps frustrated with teammates who had fallen well short of the Magic supporting cast, LeBron left those guys to answer for the upset series defeat. He departed Orlando in a huff, without shaking a hand or talking to anyone, including media, which, they didn't like. LeBron later insisted he was happy in Cleveland despite 2 straight campaigns short of the 2007 finals run. Not happy enough to sign a contract extension, though. The clock kept ticking toward 2010, next summer. Ferry entered desperation mode, the kind of short-sighted, just make a trade mindset that, brought him to Cleveland when Cavs management freaked out about Ron Harper in 1989. This time, Cleveland dealt for Shaquille O'Neal, but not the Shaquille O'Neal you're imagining, not the one Ferry himself had played against. Shaq was 37 years old, a relic of his dominant self. Midway through the 2010 season, still needing help, Ferry put together a trade for Phoenix Suns All-Star Amar'e Stoudemire. Stoudemire would immediately become LeBron's best teammate yet by a wide margin. Oh, hi. Amar'e was also headed for free agency, so the Cleveland front office envisioned him and LeBron re-upping together to lead the Cavs in the new decade. But yet another big trade for an excellent potential co-star failed to materialize. Thus, the Cavs' big 2010 deadline edition, their last chance to pair LeBron with a real deal co-star, was Antoine Jamison. This obviously wasn't enough. The Cavs cracked 60 wins again and took care of the Bulls in the first round, but the healthy Celtics awaited Cleveland in round 2. The secondary Cavs went cold once again, and this time, so did LeBron himself. Cleveland generated a momentary swell of hope by destroying the Celtics in Game 3 at Boston, but the Cavs barely put up a fight the rest of the series. Nursing a mysterious elbow injury that became an annoying meme, LeBron shot a horrid 18 of 53 in 3 consecutive losses. No teammate came close to picking up the slack. At the last moments, the NBA's best player, an Ohioan, spent under contract with Ohio's NBA team, looked like this. Mike Breen knew what everyone was thinking.
Cleveland fans wondering if that's the last time he'll take off a Cavalier jersey.
And it was. You know what happened in free agency. LeBron heard the pleas of Cavs fans and hinted at staying home. Some of those Cavs fans fixated on their star filing to change his jersey number from 23 to 6. Surely he wouldn't bother with the paperwork if he planned to change teams, never mind who might have given him that idea. In any event, LeBron had thrown out all kinds of hints in recent years. He knew what he was doing. He relished the opportunity to choose and to shift the NBA landscape with said choice. James headlined the biggest free agent summer since 1996, when MJ signed a big new deal with Chicago, when Shaquille O'Neal fled his draft city to begin building a dynasty in Los Angeles, and when the Cavs' biggest signing was Mark West. LeBron added a new layer to this 2010 edition of the seismic free agency bonanza. The King guaranteed himself a supporting cast. In a move that germinated back in 2006 when they all signed 4-year deals, LeBron and his old Team USA pals, Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh, freed up all at once and joined forces. While the new Big Three in Miami built gradually toward a championship, two, it turned out, the Cavaliers sunk. Dan Gilbert began this chapter by throwing a public rich guy tantrum. Gilbert scolded LeBron in a spiteful open letter, somehow the second of its kind that decade, although at least Gordon Gunn's letter admonishing Carlos Boozer wasn't published in Comic Sans. We still don't know why Gilbert expressed his fury in the same typeface I used for my 3rd grade book report about armadillos, but it certainly diluted his message. Childish as this looked, Gilbert wasn't alone in resenting the NBA's best player for ditching the team in his hometown. You know, the team that got lucky enough to draft him, the team that from the Boozer fiasco to the summer of '05 to all those non-trades never provided LeBron, the guy, a single teammate anywhere near the kind MJ or Kobe had in their early careers. Meanwhile, with a new coach and a new GM, people who probably thought they were signing up to work beside LeBron, what remained of the Cavs re-entered the muck. Cleveland finished the 2011 season at 19-63, worst in the East. For the 3rd time in franchise history, and from the greatest heights they'd ever reached, the Cavaliers plummeted once more to their death. That was 5 years before tonight. That was before Ferry's GM replacement traded Mo Williams for a lucky 2011 lotto ticket. Before that ticket won Cleveland the opportunity to choose Kyrie Irving. That was before the Cavs remained bad enough to win another draft lottery in 2013 and then do it again the next season. Cleveland certainly did not nail all their draft picks, but Dan Gilbert's son, Nick, has been an outstanding good luck charm. After 4 years, 2 titles, and another 2 MVP awards in Miami, LeBron James reached unrestricted free agency again in 2014, days after the Cavs drafted Andrew Wiggins first overall. Maybe LeBron would leave Miami, but for Cleveland? A young losing team? A team still owned by Comic Sans Boy? With fans who'd trashed their star in 2010, then did this in 2013? It sounded weird, but if you had been looking closely, or if you'd been listening to LeBron, you saw a window. The 2014 Cavs had some things they lacked back when James made his heartbreaking decision 4 years prior. They had a superstar point guard in Kyrie. Their young talent base now included Wiggins, a prospect hyped almost as intensely as LeBron once was. And Cleveland had laid some groundwork. They made gestures. They invited LeBron to Zydrunas Ilgauskas' jersey retirement in March 2014, and the King accepted. Dan Gilbert had offered olive branches, public and private. He even deleted his infantile open letter. So when July arrived, Cavs management got to meet with LeBron's agent, Rich Paul. Paul brought along Mark Termini, the agent who once handled Ron Harper's turbulent negotiations with Cleveland. The Cavs felt good enough about the meeting to clear cap space in a hurry. Was this really happening? Cleveland is the second most populous city in Ohio. It gets quite cold, and it doesn't boast quite as rich a nightlife as some other NBA markets. For the finest, rudest point on the city's reputation among NBA players, we turn to Joakim Noah, who was tired of losing to the rival Cavs in 2010 and did a little trolling.
Every time I look out my window, it's pretty depressing out here, man. It's bad. It's bad. I mean, I never heard anybody say I'm going to Cleveland on vacation. What's so good about Cleveland?
For 44 years, billionaires and their executives drafted, traded, and overpaid to make people come to Cleveland and play for the Cavaliers. 2014, at last, was different. The best player in basketball, who held all the power, was a man born and raised in Ohio. He could choose. And for the first time ever, thanks to patience and planning and a lot of luck, the guy chose to be a Cleveland Cavalier. This time, LeBron announced his world-shaking decision in a Sports Illustrated article. LeBron was coming back, coming home. LeBron was still an Ohioan, but he wasn't a kid anymore, and he would not be passive. He continued to choose. The King arrived with big plans for his home community, and with an agenda for his home team. James had leverage, too. His contract guaranteed only one season in Cleveland. If the Cavs wanted to avoid another 2010, they'd have to satisfy LeBron immediately. The Kevin Love trade was only kind of the Cavs' idea. Before LeBron surprised Cleveland by signing, new GM David Griffin had discussed but ultimately abandoned a trade with Minnesota for their fed-up star. But then LeBron arrived and immediately called Love himself to propose a partnership. Kevin was into it, so suddenly LeBron's boss had little choice but to figure out a deal. Throughout LeBron's machinations, Andrew Wiggins found himself in a very uncomfortable state of limbo. His name was conspicuously absent from LeBron's homecoming address, and the reason became clear. The Kevin Love deal sent Wiggins to Minnesota, punted from one lottery team to another weeks after draft night. The number one prospect had no say in any of this unprecedented movement. LeBron returned to Cleveland holding a list of role players he wanted around, and the Cavs obliged. Cleveland signed Mike Miller, formerly of the Heat. They signed James Jones, formerly of the Heat. The King didn't just influence transactions. Cavaliers coach David Blatt, an overseas icon new to the NBA, felt undermined from day one. In the locker room, LeBron took it upon himself to mentor Kyrie, who did not necessarily want his mentorship. In practice, LeBron called meetings. In games, LeBron sometimes called for timeouts and sets and substitutions. The actual basketball of the 14-15 season took a toll on LeBron's health. He missed a spate of games right after his 30th birthday. But James used that absence to further flex his power. He helped broker the trade that brought in J.R. Smith and Iman Shumpert. LeBron took an unusual mid-season trip to Miami, rehabbing injuries at a distance while rumors swirled and the Cavs lost games. They actually fell below the 500 mark before the end of January 2015. LeBron stirred up drama with coded tweets, chastised media members who concluded the tweets were directed at Kevin Love, then later admitted the media people were right. All this, and the Cavs were, pretty good. At least once LeBron returned, they hit their stride in the spring and earned a playoff 2 seed. Their run through the Eastern Conference did hit adversity. Love got his shoulder yanked out by the Celtics, and without him, the Cavs had to work to beat the Bulls. Cleveland only overcame an early deficit because LeBron defied Coach Blatt's play call to hit a game winner. But in the conference finals, Cleveland dismantled the upstart Atlanta Hawks, a team built by, Danny Ferry, before he took the fall for reading some racist notes off a scouting report. Anyway, LeBron got the Cavs back in the NBA Finals in 2015. The Cavaliers that chose him made the finals once in 7 seasons. The Cavaliers he chose did it on the first try. But that was the end of the line. Love's shoulder kept him out, and Irving blew up his kneecap in Game 1 of the series. Cleveland's healthier, splashier opponent, the Golden State Warriors, reaped the fruits of a more gradual build. Their personnel comprised a variety of footnotes and what-ifs for Cleveland. League MVP Steph Curry hoisted his first championship trophy in his original home state against the team that once squandered his dad. Curry's supporting cast featured talented draft picks the Cavaliers passed on. Klay Thompson from the 2011 draft, Harrison Barnes and Draymond Green from 2012. That roster reached new heights under the leadership of coach Steve Kerr, another former Cavalier player whose career peaked elsewhere. Last season, the Warriors planted their flag as the new boss standing between LeBron and a title for his hometown. And it's the same guys on the floor right now, in their own arena, seconds from defeat. What changed in the past year? Well, the Warriors only got better. Like, best regular season record in history better. Golden State blazed through the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, then avoided a conference final upset from Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and the OKC Thunder thanks to a stunning Game 5 comeback and otherworldly scoring in Games 6 and 7. This team fills buckets like no one has ever seen. The Cavaliers also improved, despite, or maybe because of, LeBron's grip on the organization. James signed another short contract this past summer, but only after ensuring Cleveland would pay his free agent teammates. The Cavs sweated out a negotiation with Tristan Thompson, who's a Rich Paul client like LeBron is, and they even reeled in an old pal from LeBron's first stint, Mo Williams. During the season, King James cooked up the same flavors of drama. Another mid-season sojourn in Miami, and more inscrutable tweets. And LeBron probably influenced this year's shocking mid-season move, the firing of Coach Blatt. Cleveland held the East's best record in January, but that wasn't enough to save Blatt. LeBron preferred Blatt's deputy, Tyronn Lue. And it's Lue coaching the Cavaliers tonight for Game 7. Deposing the winningest coach in the East mid-season worked out. The Cavs heated up offensively, got a healthy Kyrie back up to speed, and swept the first 2 playoff rounds. The Cavs' only real scare came against the Toronto Raptors, a new contender, built in part with the consultation of former Cleveland GM Wayne Embry. Cleveland cleaned up a tight early series with blowouts in Games 5 and 6. They secured another trip to the finals with a full Big 3, trophy presented by the wonderful Austin Carr. But this Cavs squad once again hit a wall out west. The Warriors humiliated Cleveland with a torrid scoring run in the second half of Game 1, then beat them even worse in Game 2. LeBron and Kyrie got some measure of revenge in Game 3, but Love missed it with a concussion. And Game 4 was back to the usual. Golden State took a 3-1 lead thanks to Curry's first huge game of the series. Steph hit 7 of the Warriors' record-setting 17 three-pointers. Draymond Green added injury to insult by smacking a frustrated LeBron in the taint. Or insult to injury? I never know how to phrase that. The point is, LeBron had a sore perineum, and the Cavs were screwed. It's cool that LeBron came home, but a week ago, it looked like he picked the wrong time or the wrong teammates to bring a championship ring to his birthplace. Up 3-1, the Warriors appeared inevitable, every bit as domineering as the Spurs, who snuffed Cleveland's first deep run with LeBron in 2007. But these are not those Cavs. During his first Cleveland stint, LeBron watched a teammate crack 30 points in the playoffs exactly 1 time. Boobie Gibson's 0-7 closeout performance against Detroit. That was to be expected. Examine regular season averages from that era, and you'll see LeBron never had a big scorer by his side. Opponents exposed that in the playoffs. The most productive second option from that era, Mo Williams, never really went off when it counted. This is not to besmirch Williams, who, remember, is back on the Cavs bench this season. Mo scored tonight. I just want to highlight the difference between that era and this one. He, more than anyone, is the difference. Kyrie Irving. Irving is the most prolific bucketeer ever to accompany LeBron in Cleveland. Kyrie can take the wheel when called upon, and in Game 5, he proved as much. Freed up somewhat by a one-game suspension for the defensive specialist who'd smacked his gooch, LeBron scored 41 points. And crucially, so did Kyrie. Irving reached his 41 on just 24 shots, including 5 three-pointers. The Cavs ran away in the second half to romp at Oracle Arena, led by the first teammates ever to break 40 points in the same NBA Finals game. Back at home for Game 6, the Cavs rode their momentum to a blowout score in the first quarter. This time, James didn't need much offensive help, stifling a Warrior comeback with 41 points and 11 dimes. True vintage LeBron. A 3-1 deficit turned into a 3-3 tie, which gave us tonight's winner-take-all showdown in Oakland. For the first time all series, this game has been incredibly close. Golden State gained some edge in the first half, but Kyrie recovered that ground in the third quarter. More than anything else, it's been a slog. You know the Warriors aren't themselves when the only guy hitting from outside is Draymond, who shrugs while he shoots. And it hasn't been much better for the Cavs. LeBron's been hit or miss, and Love is probably still concussed. Although each did produce a stunning defensive stop to keep Golden State scoreless for over 4 minutes preceding this moment. Andre Iguodala's layup with 2 minutes to go would have given the Warriors a lead, but LeBron may have literally left an impact crater with this chase down block.
Oh, blocked by James!
And we saw how Kev held his own against Earth's scariest three-point shooter. But Love and James have both been cold from the field in this final period. Even Kyrie was 1 of 5 in the fourth quarter before he hit, one of the biggest shots in NBA history. Seconds later, LeBron trailed Irving down the lane and came so close to converting one of the greatest dunks ever. Even with the miss, this Draymond Green foul put LeBron on the line, where he hit 1 of 2 free throws, adding the critical 4th point to Cleveland's lead. Now the Warriors have little hope of coming back with just 1 remaining possession. Those plays comprised the pinnacle, the very razor's edge of a rocky 46-year climb. When this time elapses, LeBron will certainly be named 2016 NBA Finals MVP for the world champion Cleveland Cavaliers. LeBron James will be the guy to make it happen for a fan base that bears the scars of a half-century spent falling short. Clevelanders know from history how critical it is for an NBA franchise to value the all-important draft lottery, to make trades for the right reasons. Each of those keys unlocked the potential for a champion in Cleveland. But Cavs fans also know that finding great players is one thing, and attracting them is another. LeBron James didn't choose to be born in Cleveland. LeBron James didn't choose to be drafted a Cavalier. But after a bitter departure, some glorious time away, and a few years of Cavalier luck, LeBron James, the guy, chose to come home. He remodeled home to match his tastes. Speaking of home, what's going on in Ohio right now, 2,000 miles away from Game 7? Well, Joe Tate is at home, and he's watching on TV. He has mostly tuned out the Cavaliers since retiring, but he couldn't resist tonight. In downtown Cleveland, 2 old friends are watching this national broadcast too, and they're at work. Fred McLeod, the Ohio-born play-by-play guy who's been the TV voice of the Cavs since 2006. Austin Carr, whose number hangs from the rafters over his head. The longtime partners are announcing this game on a private feed for the arena watch party. As these final seconds tick off the clock in Oakland, let's listen to Fred and AC back home. Let's experience this through the ears of a fan base that waited over 46 years to be right here. Let's embrace the end of a half-century's longing. At last, it's Cleveland's time. Welcome to a moment in history.
Curry. They'll give the 3. No. Rebound. Maurice Spates.
Good night, Oakland. It's over.
It's over.
The 52-year drought is over. It's over. The Cavaliers have won the NBA championship.
Everybody stand up and cheer.
18,801 days, and it's over. Cleveland, celebrate. Go crazy because the championship is yours.